Alright, so this is the demo for demo number 3. And today we will talk about JSwing, it's called JSwing. So in our lab for this week, I included a few links here for you to study yourself if you want to learn more. But one is about JSwing, one is about model view controller. Okay, for the model view controller, you don't need to know much. I just quickly show you what that means. But if you want to learn more, you can go read it yourself. So the idea of a model view controller is that when you build a software with a graphical user interface, or GUI for short, this is one way to organize the things in your software. And we can have a view where the user will see the view, but the user do not see the internal working, which is the model. The user do not see how the events are happening inside the software. So instead the user may click a button, may move the mouse somewhere in the window, may press the mouse, may release the mouse. So that's the controller part. The controller is like a event listener that listens to what the user does, listens to user input, and the controller will then, when it listens to when you heard an event from a user, it's going to send that event to some kind of action listener, which is a Java function that you can execute some code in your function that might manipulate your model. And what happens down the road is that your view, when it updates, when it shows to the screen, it actually looks into your model and see if the model has changed. And if it has, then the view will update, and then the user can see the new view. Okay. So we're gonna do an example of this. You don't need to know like every single detail of this, and online tutorials may be about talking about this in the server setting. So if it's a server setting, imagine the model will be something in a database or in a server. The view may be a browser web page, and the controller may be the buttons on the web page or JavaScript stuff. Okay, but we're not going there. So we're just doing JSwing. So JSwing is something like this. So I also include a link to this tutorial here. So JSwing is a package that includes multiple classes, make it easier for us to create Java graphical user interface. Okay, so it is inside the Java hierarchy. So in Java you have object, everything is object except the primitive values. So JSwing components, J components, are also objects. And under the component, you may have a label, which is fixed text. You may have a list of things. You may have a table, a combo box, a J slider, a menu, a button. So all of this, everything starts with a J. They can be displayed inside a panel or a window. Okay, so this J component, it can live inside a container, and the container can display to the window. And one of the things I remember is that container can also contain other containers. So for example, a window might contain a panel. Okay. Right, so we will practice doing this, and it doesn't really help you if you just go through a tutorial. Like there are so many different kind of components here. It doesn't really help you if you just go through each one of them one by one. The best way to approach this is that you want to build something, right? And then you kind of know what you need. For example, you want to build an Excel sheet, right? You might use a JTable, and then you can look into the documentation for JTable, right? And you can build something like this. So in this case, I'm going to demo building a chat GUI. So it's going to be something like a chatting room software. You have a text area showing the text being set by everyone. You have a bar where you can put your own input. You have a button where you can click to send your chat. And we are also going to make our GUI so that it memorizes the things we typed in the chat and can load it back. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, I'm first going to copy my lab material here. Actually, I will do inside here. Okay. So first, create a new class for our GUI, and this will be the main class for our GUI. Right. So no matter what, you always have a main to begin with, and this will be the main function that loads your GUI. Okay, so let's give it a name. Let's call it a chat GUI. Okay. And first of all, I think I need a window to show up the things I want, right? So what is a window? Okay, so a window can be created using the class called JFrame, right? And how do I do that? So we want our JFrame, and let's call it the main window, right? And let's new a JFrame here, but we don't have the JFrame yet. Let's import that class. Okay, so if you highlight it, it says import JFrame from JSwing. So that's the JSwing package we want to use. That's it. So let's import JSwing star so we can have everything in JSwing. We want a JFrame. Let's call it our chat GUI. Give it a name. And this frame alone doesn't work as a software. The best thing that you can do normally is that you add the panels to a frame, and then you can organize things inside the panel. Okay, so let's add a JPanel here. In this case, maybe a frame is not needed, a panel is not needed, but it's normally good practice. So new JPanel. Right, and you can set a layout for your panel. So what kind of layout are there? Let me quickly look it up. Okay, so I look up the documentation for different layout. Now, some of the most common used ones you can see here. And if you're unsure about what they mean, for example, a border layout is going to create something like this, where things are at the start of the page, end of the page, or the center. Okay, so this doesn't seem like what we want, but it could be. So let's look into this a little bit more and see which one we want the best. The box layout. Okay. The card layout. I think the card layout is like you can have this kind of thing. Right? You can have tabs. That's the card layout. Flow layout is the default one normally, since it's being put in there. Okay, I think grid layout. Grid layout is like a table. Okay, border layout may be the best one for us to use here. Let me just confirm that real quick. So let's look at the code. see how it's generating here. So this is button 1 is put at the page start of the panel. Okay, let me continue. In our case, I think we just need the border layout. So in terms of border layout, you can put things on the top, bottom, center, left, and right. And in our case, we will have a text input and a button, maybe with a button with another button here where you can send your message, and the chat text panel will be occupying the rest of the window. Okay, but before we do that, let's make sure that our window can show up. Let's try this. Okay, we do have a window up here. It's very small. We can change the size to be a different size as well if you want to. Okay. Right, so 800 pixel. Now, as I'm going through this, I'm going to keep doing this to just make sure that I'm on the right track. Okay, so let me continue building the panel, building the view here. Before let's discuss about the model view controller and VC again. Okay. So we want border layout first of all. And this will be importing the border, create a new border layout. How do I do that? Let me think. I need a new, okay, it's actually an object. So let me new a border layout here. So my panel is border layout, and let me add the panel to my window. So I'll do this. Okay, so if I run now, let's see what happens. So still nothing here, right? Now let me change the panel corner to something else. So you will see the panel is indeed added. Set background corner. So we can do a new corner here. Let me see what kind of corner can I do. So I know I can do RGB. I wonder if I can just do some. Okay, I can just do the RGB then. If you look at this, you will see its RGB values are ranged from 0 to 250, right? So let's do that. I think I want the red one, so let me do a 200 here, and 0 and 0. That should give me a red panel. Let me see what we got. Okay, indeed a red panel. And so far you see the panel occupying the whole thing. And you can also set the size of the panel. Let's set it to 800 by 600 height. So the window is bigger because the window has 800 height. Okay, right now it's not doing that for me. My guess is that this main window set size override that. This is my guess. Okay, so for example, if I take this away, around that again, the panel is there. Oh, somehow the panel set size doesn't work. Okay, yeah, okay. So some kind of mechanism is going on in the set size. This is a little beyond the topic of this class. So what happens internally is that the layout manager, oh right, I set the layout to the panel, not to the frame. Okay. Yeah, ignore this. So we have a single panel in our frame, and we are going to add, let's make it green, blue instead, less intrusive, RGB. So we have a single panel in our frame, and the frame is a window that's 800 800 now. Next, we can add our text area. So that's something called the J text area. Okay, that's our text area. Let's do a new J text area here. And the text area will be added to the panel. So when we do panel add text area, notice that I didn't add text area to the frame, right? Because I said basically what I want is that I want the frame to contain a panel, and I want the panel to contain the text area, the input, and the input bar, and also the input button. Okay. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm looking at the documentation for border layout right now, and it seems like to add the text area into a panel that's border layout, I can specify where do I want it to be. So in this case, I want it to be in the center of my border layout. Now we want also a input field, right? So let's do that. It's a text field. That's the input field. New text field here. Misspelling. And we also can add this text field into our J panel. But we're going to add it to the south of our panel. Okay, let's see what it looks like now. Let's run and see what happens. Okay, it's not showing up yet. It's not showing up. Interesting. I know the panel is definitely there because the panel is the CNET blue. Let's see what went wrong here. Maybe I should set visibility down below. Interesting. Oh, I realized that it's in white corners. I didn't see it. This is the text area. This is the text panel. This is the text input. So they're already there. But the confusing part is that why the panel is not. Okay. So I think I don't know what. Okay, I think I know what went wrong here. So let me redo this again. So it was like this before. Okay, when I run, I don't think the text area and the input field is there because I cannot input anything. Okay. However, if I do it over here, you will see it actually now shows up. Okay. So what might be happening, which is probably true, is that when I do main window set visible to true, so when I add them, by default, I think they are not visible. So when I set it to true, when I say main window set visible to true, it's going to say, okay, let's change the visibility of every single thing under the main window. In this case, that's the panel inside the window. So when I'm doing it here, panel is already added to the window. And when I say main window set visible to true, the panel becomes visible and becomes blue panel. But then I added my fields there. Okay. And if I don't call it again, the area and the input field doesn't show up because they're not visible yet. However, if I do it after everything is done, now they show up. Okay, you have a text area, you have the input field. Okay, there's a few things we want to change here, real quick. First of all, if it's a chat, then if this shows up your chat history, maybe you don't want to modify the text here, right? So we don't want it to be editable. That's text area. That's probably so when you have that kind of idea, you realize this is probably something about the text area, and there probably is a function here you can use. I think is okay. Set editable to false, right? So let's try again. Let me close all this. I cannot change that, but I can still change this. Okay. And if you are unsure if the text area is there or not, you can even set a default text there. So set text, I think. Okay. Default text. You can see the default text string up here. Okay. All right. So let's do one more thing. We said that we want a button, right? We want a button that like a send button. Let's say J button. Send button. New J button. And we want the text. We want this. This is an easy one. It says send. Okay. And we can also add this to our panel. But there is a minor problem. So we can add it, send button to our panel, and also use the south border layout. I don't think this will look well. Let's see. Yeah. The send here is here. This is the text or the input. I think the input gets covered by the send. I think it's there, but it's not covered. Okay, we don't want that. So we want the input field and the send button to be side by side, and the send button needs to be small. Okay, so to do that, you could add a small panel. Okay, a sub panel. Let me call it input panel. All right, input panel. That's a new J panel itself, and this input panel is going to be the one containing the input field and the send button. Okay, so this, and then I'm going to say I want to add them side by side, right? I want to add the two components, the input field and the button side by side. And to do that, the layout I want is border layout, not border layout. Let me quickly Google myself. I think it's flow layout. So flow layout will give you things in a flow, like from left to right or from right to left, right? Left to right, right to left. And you can specify the alignment. I'm not sure what these parameters mean, but we will figure them out if we need to. Okay, so let me do that. Input panel, set layout. Let's do new flow layout. Actually, we can see it here. So alignment value. Oh, okay. This alignment is going to be one of those values. It's kind of like the Excel sheet when you do alignment. You are saying that for a column in your Excel table, do you want the values to be aligned to the left or aligned to the right? So it's like that. So it's more about like formatting. Okay. In our case, I think the default is one. The default is good, which is the flow left. I think a line to the left. Right, so now we have this input panel. Input panel has input field. Input panel has Input panel has the send button. Okay. And then we want to add our input panel to our bigger panel. Let's do panel, add input panel, and we want to add it to the south of border layout. South. And let's see what this looks like. Okay, so you see a text area here, but it's super small, and there's a send button right beside. Yeah, there's a text area here, and that's too small. Okay, how do we fix it? All right, so I think that on second thought, the input panel can also be a border layout, right? Then I'm going to add the input field to the center. Border layout center. I'm going to add the button to the right side. It's the border layout west. Okay, now if I do that, okay, sorry, east I mean. Now if I do that, you will see it looks like this. Now that's more like it. Okay. Potentially you can change the size, send button to make it bigger. Right, so for example, send button, set width, okay, set size maybe. Let's say we want to get the current size, right? We want to get the size. Get size. Get size gives you a dimension that. Let me import that. Okay. Let's say we want to use the same height, but we want to use 3 times the size of the width. 不要拉佢吧。Does this work? Okay, I give it a quick search. It seems like changing the size here like this doesn't work. For example, even I change the height to like 3 times the height, it doesn't work. It's the same size. The reason is that send button is controlled by the input panel. It's part of the input panel. And input panel is controlled by the bigger panel. So when the bigger panel is being rendered, it has a specific layout. And it's going to follow the layout first and ask the components about the size later. And if the size provided by the component doesn't work in the layout, the layout manager of the bigger panel is actually going to override their size. In this case, for example, input panel contains send button. And even though I said I want send button to be 3 times the size wider, my input panel, because it uses border layout itself, it says, okay, we're not going to do that because in border layout, if you are on the right side of my border layout, you can only be this big. I think that to truly modify the size here, you need to do something with this layout that you are using. In this case, a border layout here. All right. Here, let me quickly try something just to confirm if this is the case. So say if I do have a border layout object, right? I think that I can actually set certain things here. Okay. I see. Yeah, I can only set the gap here. That's actually not enough. And there is a layout that gives you the maximum control. Let me look it up. Okay, so I do find an example that's saying even if you don't specify the layout itself, JFrame and JPanel, they all have a default layout. In JFrame, it's border layout. In JPanel, it's flow layout. So it's almost always recommended to use a layout. However, they also say you could do something like this. Let me show you real quick. I copy this code from somewhere else. Okay. Let's see what this gives us. Let me comment this first. Okay, so this is a JFrame with no layout specified. Okay, you need to have to set layout to null. Otherwise, it's going to use the default one. And once you do that, you can actually set the bounds of the buttons and the label and the text field. For example, if I want to move the button up, let me do 0 here. Move to the up to the corner here. Let me run again. And you can see the button gets moved up. So every component now have their own bounds. And because the panel have no layout manager, there's no layout here, it doesn't override their bounds. And the components get shown whatever location they want. Okay, now it does look kind of chaotic. I guess that's why we want to recommend using layout in general. Let's go back to our case here. So, going back to ChatGPT, no, Chat GUI. Let's use. Okay, I like the border layout here. Let's keep doing that. Okay, so we have this. We have this. Now this is only, if you think about it, this is only the view part of your program. It doesn't have to do anything yet. There's no interaction. You can type stuff in here, but that's because this text input field has their default controller, which is listening to your input and put it and copy it here. So there's a default controller here, right? So now we're going to start building the view, controller, and model separately. So because this is a view, right? This is a view. You can think of this. So what we can do is that we can create a class for this. So let's say we're going to do a class called chat view, right? And chat view is going to have everything here. So public chat view, this is the constructor. It's going to do this. And the chat GUI, which is the main program, is just simply just going to do this instead. It's going to do chat view, the main window will be creating a new chat view. Okay. Now we have the same thing effectively, but now it's better because this program is the main program that runs everything, and this is in charge of the view. Now next we can start building the controller, okay, which is the process that handles our events. In this case, we have keyboard events, we have the send button events. Right. So what's going to look like is that you can type in stuff here, and then when you hit the enter button, it should send everything up to the model, to the main text, or you can click the send button here, right? So before we do the controller, actually it makes more sense to do the model, and we will do this in class.